Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the LiftAffect podcast. I am your host, Matt McNeil, founder, clinical director, and director of human performance at LiftAffect, where we assist professional pilots with maintaining better mental health and optimizing their mental skills. The goal of this podcast is simple: to help pilots and other high liability professionals and disciplines come out of the shadows to discover how we can live better lives personally and professionally. Join us each episode as we discuss various topics ranging from mental health, mental skills and performance, to business, entrepreneurship, and a few other surprises along the way.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another LiftAffect podcast. We've talked about a lot of things so far and have so many more things to talk about. But I would like to tell our listeners today that this could be an interesting or challenging podcast, because we're going to talk about some things that are very challenging. Because it ties into a question that was asked of us, and also of what has to be dealt with at times, or the things that you deal with and the challenges. I'm Karl Keller. I'm the host, and with me is, as always, Matt McNeil, the founder of LiftAffect, who, as many of you already know, specializes in dealing with helping people in the aviation industry and others that are in high stress, high performance types of professions. This is going to be probably one of the more somber and probably serious conversations we've had. And like I said, the question that we got kind of leads into everything that's going on right now. First of all, I'm going to say, Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing all right. It's been kind of a rough couple days. As you know, not all days are great, but things are okay.
Well, I'll get right to it. And like I said, this question really kind of leads into what's been going on. And that is, the listener asked, what are some of the more challenging aspects of what you do?
Timely question.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately. And how do you deal with those things?
Yeah.
Kind of a
two-part. Yeah, that's such a broad question. So I guess just to kind of like let people know, one of the things that happens when you work in this field is you can't save everybody. Then I don't save anybody. I help people save themselves. But sometimes people can't keep going. And we lost somebody that I've worked with to suicide. They ended up reaching, I think, a point where they couldn't continue to push on, and took their life. And I just got notified of that yesterday. So it's always hard. I mean, that's one of the things that goes with this. If you do this long enough, and I think in aviation or in medicine, you're going to lose people. With flying, I've lost several people to aviation accidents. Certainly the ones that are out GA flying, not airlines. Never lost anybody to an airline accident because there's so few of those. But GA, there's a lot of them, and certainly I'm sure you can in the military. You lose people.
In my squadron, I've lost 4.
Yeah,
4 people that I flew with. There were 2 that I knew pretty well, and the other 2 tangentially. But yeah, 4.
So it's going to happen. I mean, life is not a perfect, something's going to get you, as they say. But the suicide stuff is hard. I think that's one of the harder parts of my job, is when somebody loses the will to live and they take their own life. And there's a lot of different questions around that, is like, what is the right that somebody has to their own life? I firmly believe, the way that we treat animals that we love, I mean, Gandhi always had a quote, you can tell how a society is based on how they treat their animals. That is really true. Animals that you love, we really show them mercy, and we will put them out of their misery. But with people, we kind of don't. If you look at how we handle medicine, is like, just keep people going no matter what. Just keep them alive, because our collective view of death is so, like, we're so averse to it. And in medicine, and we can talk to our physician listeners and nurses and EMTs and medical workers, but there's this, at some point you say, what the hell are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? And that's why hospice doctors and nurses are such amazing people, because their view of mercy is very different, I think, than the rest of the medical community. But when people take their own life, I think it's very easy for us to say that's just terrible. That's like the worst thing. And it's the worst thing, I think, for others often, but sometimes it's not the worst thing for that person. Because that person is suffering
Pain, so much pain,
just in so much pain, that the will to, and this is Viktor Frankl's work, kind of back to Frankl, is that will to live, the meaning, when you don't have meaning in the suffering and it just becomes fruitless, it becomes untenable for people. And this particular person I had known and really cared for, had some very debilitating challenges that were not going to get better. And you never want to get that call. You never want to get that call, but you do get it, and it's never easy. It never gets easier. It's not like you get used to it. I don't ever get used to it, and honestly, I don't ever want to get used to it. And I think the loss that I'm feeling is, I'm feeling for this person's family, their loss, and I'm feeling for all that this person lost in their life because of their mental health issues that was to no fault of their own. Loss of career, loss of identity, loss of family, loss of everything. And there's so much loss, and it breaks my heart. And I hope that, I know that pain is now gone for this person. And so there's some relief in that, but I'm heartbroken and I'm really sad about that. And so how do you deal? What's hard about this profession is loss. I want to just be able to help everybody. And I give everything I have with my clients. When I put everything I have into it, I don't hold anything back. And it's not a sense of failure. I think, when I was younger, you lose people, you feel like you failed. I don't feel that way, but it's just profound sadness, that this person is gone, and I will deeply miss this person very much, miss our conversations. And
I remember the last year of my mother's life, for almost 5 months, I was a full-time caregiver. It was the hardest, most challenging, mentally challenging period of my life. She needed 24/7. I was up all night with her, and then during the day I'd be with the kids and everything. She was at peace with she was ready. She kept saying, "I'm ready to go." She was a survivor of World War II.
wow.
She'd been over in the bombings, and she was 5'9", came out weighing less than 70 pounds when the war was over. And I always thought that, she's not going to survive just because of the physical stress that kind of life, puts on you. But she had the constitution like you wouldn't believe. The mind was ready to let go, but the body wasn't. And it just kept going and going. But it was so hard to watch that. And forgive me for being so, if this sounds cold, my mother kept having what I call these dead cat bounces, where
Mhm.
we thought she was ready to go, and everybody would say their goodbyes, and then she would make this miraculous recovery, and sometimes even be cogent because she had dementia, and just there was
Mhm.
times she thought I was a robber and was trying to
Mhm.
rob and steal and do other nefarious things to her.
Mhm.
But she'd have these moments of clarity where she'd recognize everybody, and you kept going. And the hope springs eternal. And then, but each
Mhm.
bounce, so to speak, the highs were lower and lower and lower. And my family was going through a lot, just because how many times do you tell my little kids to say goodbye to Oma, grandma? But it's hard. Loss is hard. And she was at peace,
Mhm.
or at least what mental faculties she had. She was at peace while she still had them. She was just in a lot of pain. And that was another thing, I think, when you mentioned hospice. I didn't really understand hospice at first.
Mhm.
Hospice isn't there for you to get better. Hospice is
No,
there to
no.
manage pain
Yeah.
for people
So allow
as
you to
as
transition.
they
Yeah.
to transition out. They're already there to help you. I can't say they're assisted suicide. That's not what it is. But they're there to
No.
assist your suffering, knowing that your time on this physical earth
Mhm.
is nearing an end or at the end.
Mhm.
So it was a it was a very my respect for people that are in that profession is immense, because I know I couldn't do it, because I don't know how the ability to remain objective or be too
Mhm.
close to somebody to empathize. I don't know if I'd be able to find that balance. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I've always, when talking to you, I've always said, how do you find that balance to be able to sit there and help the people and be objective enough so that you don't lose a part of you, but yet still have the empathy to be able to care about those people that you're helping. That is like the same with caregivers I give you. It's I can't. I don't know that I could do it and maintain that balance. And I
Well,
think that
it's
was part of the question was, how do you do that? Because
yeah. I
it's a challenge.
here's that's a good question. I mean, it's funny, like you look at the burnout rate of psychotherapists and it's like massive. It's
I gotta believe it is.
I look at my cohort from graduate school that graduated, and there's like 17 of us. And I think like there's only 3 of us that are still practicing.
And how long ago was that?
I don't know, 14 years ago, something like that. I mean, they
Not
like
even 15
they
years, and you're 20%, less than 20%.
yeah, 12 years. Yeah. And you got to get full licensure, which takes a couple of years. So if you think about it, like they've actually been eligible to be fully, licensed practicing independently, like 10, 12 years. And like most of them have moved into academic positions, research positions at universities.
So they're not
But
dealing with patients on a day-to-day
they're not
basis.
treating patients. No. And there's only like a couple of us. Hey, Brian, if you're listening, keep going, brother. Um, but like there's only a few of us that are doing it, and because the burnout rate is so high. And what's the common factor among the few of us that are still doing it is like Brian works for the vet center. He was a Marine in Iraq, got
The
blown up.
VA. So you're
Yeah,
saying the
he
VA.
works at it's a part of it's an offshoot of the VA. He works for the vet center, and I think he's still in Minneapolis, but but he's mission oriented, and I'm mission oriented. Like it's my work isn't about me. It's about my clients. It's about the mission. It's about trying to change an industry, trying to change a culture. So the way I can just keep going, and I do a lot of, I mean, most therapists, work 15 hours a week of psychotherapy and they're done. They don't want to do anymore. And I do like 40, I mean, I think I do it because it's not about me. So I just can focus on trying to bring the most help and the most care for my clients, and I don't really think about me. Now, is there a price to pay? Yeah, there's a physical price there's a toll. It's just like flying airplanes. It's going to take a toll on you. A lot of
I know
radiation, a lot of sleep issues.
yeah, I mean, you had to, um, shed some of stuff already. I mean, you used to be an airline pilot. You were doing that. You had to let go of that. I think you were in management dealing with similar things. You had to let that go.
Yep.
I mean, you have a family.
You got to prioritize.
Side business coaching, and now doing a podcast is no simple talk and let go. So there's
a lot of work. You
have a huge full plate.
I do, and I got a good team of people like you and Bree and people that help me do this. You can't do this on your own. And V1 project is the next thing, and but you can't do it on your own. So you got to have a good team of people. You got to share the responsibility and the love with the right people. And that's something I've had to learn is, you want to do it all on your own, just do it. And then you realize I can't do this all on my own. I need to surround myself with, people that are on board with the mission. But it's not about me. It's about the mission. It's about what we're trying to do.
Here's the question that I would want to ask you then. Obviously, the goal of this podcast is to help others.
Yeah.
And today, so far, we've been doing a lot of talking about you. And that was what the question was about. But these are things that people deal with when their plate gets so full.
Yeah.
With life. It's just life, whether it could be job, it could be relationships, could be money. It doesn't make a difference what it is. The plate gets full or the bucket gets full. And when it's full, you can pour more water or more stuff into it. It's just going to flow. So the question I would ask you that would help others potentially is, what tools do you use that not that anybody else may use those, but give an idea of what kind of tools do you use to help you manage when the chaos and the noise gets so loud? And you mentioned one recently about taking the 3 or 4 deep breaths to kind of slow things down. I think that's one of the tools you used. Are there any others that you use or could recommend?
I firmly believe in using tools that cultivate flexibility, psychological flexibility. And as you know, there's psychological flexibility skills that we can cultivate. That's what the mental skills for value-based living workshop is for, that we do at LiftAffect, is to cultivate psychological flexibility when we feel internal states of distress or overwhelm, or just strife. There's tools. So one of the things that I work on is just being able to, when the stress is really heavy, obviously 80-20, right? I mean, here, I'm holding up the productivity planner. It's like, choose the most important tasks, get rid of the other ones. Not everything is important. If everything is important, nothing's important. And so being able to pare down and whittle down what is the most important thing and just focus on that. And then the secondary, and then the additional after that. So that's a way to kind of get things off the plate. But when things are just hot and heavy in a bad way, and you're just like, you can feel like you're at the boiling point, I work at trying to get back to the present moment. Because when I'm overstressed, is usually I'm thinking about all that needs to be done. And it feels overwhelming, or I'm even start past tensing about, my shortcomings. When we get vulnerable, we get down on ourselves. And so being able to tether back into the present moment is the equivalent of, for the pilots out there, is like looking at the attitude indicator instead of just looking at all the other instrumentation. It's like you get lost, get turned topsy-turvy, lose your way, get the spins. Your eyes need to go to that attitude indicator 100%.
Like re-caging the gyro.
Yeah. Yep. So the present moment is the attitude indicator. Is like, okay, my life is happening in real time in this moment, and in this moment, am I safe? Usually I am. If I'm not, which is very rare, then I need to get myself into some place of, some safety, which is like, if you're in a car with screaming kids and, this and that, it's like, you're not going to solve it necessarily in the car. You need to get yourself out of the car and then, find a place to return to. But the present moment is where your life is actually happening. And in the present moment, it's okay. So what do you do? How do you do that? Ground yourself into something that is a constant. And one of the things that's always a constant, and if you cultivate a practice of mindfulness, which is mind training, the constant that is usually focused on is the breath. The breath is this constant companion that never goes away. If you don't think it is, try holding your breath for a while and don't, see what happens. You'll see how important the breath is really fast. So the constant companion is the breath. And if you just focus on the sensation, like we have 5 senses: touch, taste, sight, smell, sound. Those are real time, real information, sensory experiences. Those are in the moment. Like if you touch your hand on your cheek and you can feel that, that's happening in real time. It's not future tensed or past tensed. It's present. So grounding yourself into a physiological sensation of breathing, which is, where do you feel the sensation of breathing in that moment? Maybe it's the tip of your nose or the back of your throat, or it's in your chest or your belly. But just being able to focus your attention on that sensation is a way to start to refocus your energy into the present moment and getting out of that complete and total overwhelm. One of the tools that we use and that we teach is a tool that lots of people have written about it. I think the best synthesis is by a guy named Russ Harris. He wrote about it. He calls it dropping anchor. And it's just it's a technique to contact the present moment, to get to the attitude indicator. And when it's good for overwhelm. So what does overwhelm mean? Maybe we should talk about that for a second. Overwhelm is like emotional dysregulation. When you're losing your shit, you're becoming dysregulated. That's overwhelm. Being hyper aroused, looking for the tiger constantly. You feel like that spidey sense is just, 10x.
That adrenaline, where the adrenaline's got
adrenaline.
You're so hyper, it's like you can't.
Yeah. Now there's hypo arousal, which is the opposite. When you're completely lethargic and just zonked, that we call that dissociation. That's a protective mechanism as well. Just check out. And even at its most, extreme state is people just, they just sleep. They just pass out. They're just out.
I almost feel like that's when people drink too much and they just.
Well, they're trying to dissociate. I mean, they're trying to use a chemical to get into that place. But we can, even when people get overwhelmed, they used to call it shell shock. Remember that term, shell shocked?
Oh yeah.
People standing there, not able to move. That's a protective state. That's the freeze state. Freeze, fight, run. So dissociation is a big one. Overwhelming emotions, just extreme fits of screaming or yelling or crying is when we are overwhelmed. When your behavior becomes more compulsive, that's a good sign of overwhelm. Like you start to just become more compulsively regimented about something.
And not know why sometimes.
And not know why. You're just like, why am I getting so wrapped around the axle about this being a certain way? Extreme fusion to your thoughts. Like you just can't get, every thought becomes totally consuming and overwhelming. You just no perspective that maybe you're just experiencing the thought instead of becoming the thought. Flashbacks can be a sign of overwhelm. Panic attacks. So the point is like there's 3 steps that Harris writes about dropping anchor, and he uses the term ACE. So for the pilots, that's easy. You're an ace, right? A is acknowledge your inner experience. So the aim here is to just acknowledge whatever thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, memories, urges, whatever's present. And it's often useful to just put into the words okay, here's sadness, here's anger, here's worry, here's confusion, whatever is happening, or here's tension. C is come back into your body. This is the grounding piece. This is the recage piece. And it's just to regain a sense of self-control by focusing on what you have most control over when difficult thoughts and feelings are there, which is your physical reactions. You can't control your mind. You can't control what you think about. Don't think about that. That's always the funniest advice that coaches give you and stuff like that is don't think about that. Like you can't not think, you can't control your thoughts. You don't get to control what you think. And it's actually paradoxical. The more you try to control it, the more out of control it gets. So using your body is one thing you can control. So like people say, no, you can't. Yes, you can. Put your hand over your head, right? Just do it. Whoever's listening, put your hand over your head. Well, how did you do that? Well, you just did it because you can control that. You can't control your heart rate, your autonomic response. You can't control your, dilation or your how much you perspire. Those are autonomic nervous system responses. You have very little control over that, but your musculoskeletal nervous system, which is your muscle metabolism, your level of muscle tension, you do have control over that.
And for all you listeners out there, say that by running you can elevate your heartbeat. Yeah, you can, but that's cheating.
Right. You can do that, but if I said take your heart rate, and look, some people have trained themselves, like Wim Hof and all those guys, like they train themselves to do this, but the average person does not. They can't just take their heart rate from 60 to 150 just sitting there. You could try to think about something that's distressing, but you have very little control over that. But in terms of like, if you're holding tension in your jaw, you can go, oh, I'm going to relax my jaw. Like you can control the musculoskeletal nervous system. You don't get to control the autonomic nervous system. But what's cool is when you start to relax the muscle, if you think about adrenaline, right? What happens? We get scared and the brain goes, okay, I need to either freeze, fight, or run from the tiger. So it goes, okay, adrenaline pumps on, shoots adrenaline. Now the adrenaline innervates into your body and it goes into the muscles. All the blood drains from your organs and goes out to your muscles. So you can try to neutralize the threat, which is run or fight or freeze. Which is great for a bit, but if you do that for too long, like you're going to die because your organs need blood. So the adrenaline in the brain talks to the body. It goes, okay, let's go. You need super strength to lift the car off the kid or whatever it is. That's a good thing. But if you can then relax the muscle, even if the brain is going nuts, saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? Overwhelm. If you say, you know what, I'm going to try to relax my jaw or relax my shoulders and just let my body become relaxed with my muscles. What happens is it sends a signal back to the brain that says, I don't need adrenaline. There's no stress here, even with the thoughts going crazy. So the brain goes, oh, okay, adrenaline pumps off. So the brain talks to the body, but see, the body gets to talk back to the brain. So that's why being able to come back into your body is really important. And so move, stretch, change posture, sit upright, stand up, walk, alter your breathing, straighten your spine, push your feet into the floor, whatever it is, right? These things help people to rapidly regain control over the physical body, which starts to then communicate with the brain. So that's the C. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, I remember one of my instructors when I was learning how to fly, whenever you would see people tense up on the controls with their hands, they always would say, wiggle your toes. Try to keep your hands tense and wiggle your toes at the same time.
It starts to relax it.
Yeah, it starts to relax.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, when we would I ran a fear of flying, helped co-run a fear of flying treatment program where we'd get all these phobics and go on a commercial flight, which people would be like, that's insane. No, we could do it because we could cure it. But we would say is, listen, you get to be as upset and anxious and freaked out as you want, but you have to keep your muscles relaxed while you're doing it. And if you just and so we just go with the arm, right? Just relax. And I would walk up and down the aisle and I would lift their arm by their sleeve, right? And if the arm just went up, I'd be like, nah, you're not relaxed, right? You need to get that arm really heavy. So when I pull on your sleeve, the arm is just really it's really limp. And so if they did that within 12 minutes, the number one thing they would report is, well, this is so weird. I should be totally freaking out right now, but I'm not. Right. Because you allowed your physiological body, your musculoskeletal nervous system to communicate with your brain to start to downregulate your autonomic nervous system. It's the two-way communication. They talk to each other. So coming back into your body is it's a great step toward any effective physical action. And then the E is engage with the world. So the aim here is to expand your awareness. Notice where you are. What are you doing? What can you see, hear, touch, taste, smell? And it's not to distract from your thoughts and feelings, but to notice what else is here in addition to your thoughts and feelings. Because when we're overwhelmed, we're so in it that that's like the only thing that we feel. We're like drowning in the overwhelm, and being able to use your sensations to go, okay, that's there, but there's also more stuff here, gives you a little bit more perspective, which is something we call psychological diffusion. So acknowledge your inner experience, come back into your body, engage with the world. It's sort of like when you're taxiing around and you're getting conflicting information from controllers. You don't just keep taxiing, you stop. What do? Set the brake. Okay, wait, time out. Or they change your runways, right? Just, okay, stop. Set the brake, reprogram your stuff, make sure you get everything in there, and then you can, re-engage with
Just
what's
like
going
if there's
on.
an emergency on an airplane, hack the clock.
Hack the clock. That's
Give
it.
yourself, because if some things have to be, you just do automatically, but there's so many things that you need to take a second or two, analyze things, calm yourself down. And it's amazing what the difference is in just those few seconds.
Yeah.
I think I've told you before, and I think I've said it on one of the podcasts. One of the things that I use all the time is I use the okay symbol where you have the circle, and I look through it and I go, I can only see so many things in it, and that's life. Life wants to make you go down that rabbit hole, whether it's money, relationships, a job, it doesn't make a difference. And I constantly am forcing it open until I make an L. So I say, I want my picture to be so big I can only see one corner, to remind myself that all that stress there, life wants to do that to you. And you have to open them and go, how blessed you really are and how fortunate you are. And that helps me de-escalate things, because I realize I have a wife who loves me and that I love, and I have 5 healthy children. And that helps me kind of de-escalate things and put things in perspective. And that's the word I think that's so important, is when you get in that, in not in flying. I'm going to take flying away from this for a minute and put it in life's perspective. Life wants to drag you down the hole, and it's all about perspective, trying to find out what's really important. Because so often we lose that, and we think that little problem becomes the only thing in life that matters, that drags you down. Finances. Finances is a challenging thing for so many people out there today.
Yeah.
But you know what? We can all get another job. And there are people that live on a lot less than most of our listeners do, based on the demographics of what we have. It's amazing what we can do when we just focus on those things.
It's true. And it's funny when you look at, and there are people that do not have enough, and they are, and that is a serious problem for people. Like there is economic hardship, people have. Most of the world is incredibly poor. But it's funny when I work with our clientele is, people that are higher income earners. It's amazing the psychological place they can get into where they feel like they have nothing. And so one of the things I do, and one of the things we're going to do like in the V1 project, is the financial garden is one of the constellations that we work on. Is what is your relationship with finances? What are your attitudes about money? Is it scarcity? Is it abundance? And how much do you actually need? Most people think that I just need more and more and more. And as pilots, we're like, they'll work themselves to death, picking up extra time and picking up more trips and go to make more money. And it's like, but why are you doing that? Well, I just need it. Well, how much do you need? Well, I just need more. Well, that's absurd. And so figuring out what you actually need, when you take people down that exercise, which I've done many, many times, which is get your financial planner involved and get your wife involved, or your spouse, your husband, or your partner. And let's actually look at your budget, and let's actually look at what you need. It's always way less than what they thought. They thought they needed all of this, I just need more and more. And it's like a fraction in actual terms of what do you need? It's a fraction of what they thought. And so our mindset is typically, because of freeze, fight, or run, goes into lack. And that can really create a lot of problems for people. So I don't know how we ended up getting into that, but
Well, it's all about coping and dealing with stress and dealing with all those things we've talked about today. And I was going to tie that all up because people may go, how did all of that have to do with loss?
I don't.
It's all
Well,
about coping and dealing with
yeah.
things sometimes that are not in our control. I mean, some things are. Some things we have self-imposed upon ourselves or done to ourselves. Made a bad financial decision, as an example. That we can sit there and say, "Yeah, I did that to myself." But what happened to my mom isn't anything that I did. That's
And it's a normal
it's called
part of
life.
living. Yeah,
It is.
losses. You don't get to get out of. Look, my mom always used to say, you don't get something without giving something else up. And so, maybe it's that, have your cake and eat it too kind of thing. But like
Life is a
loss
zero-sum game,
normal.
unfortunately.
You're going to lose. You're going to lose. One of my really good friends just lost his dad. His dad was loved AME, like just a beloved AME. Guy lived to be 98. Amazing life. And he was telling me one of the things his dad had said shortly before he died is he said, I've lost everything. I lost my mom, lost my dad, lost my brother, lost my practice. I mean, loss is, if you're lucky, in some respects, if we're lucky, we get to go through that.
It is so hard to maintain that perspective, but I keep telling myself,
Oh, it's very difficult.
I hate to say it like this. This is a very morbid, but just a real thing to say. We start dying the moment we're born.
It's true.
So we will live. We are born and we will die.
Yep.
And life doesn't change. And unfortunately, since what's changed is 200 years ago, the average life expectancy was in the 30s and 40s for the majority of the people. Yeah. And death was a very common, it was a constant companion. I hate to say it. We've come to the point where, we say a parent should never outlive their child. Mm-hmm. Well, back in those days, parents outlived their children all the time. But in today's world, we have to look at, okay, that was then, this is now. And what I say is it's what you do between the time you're born and life ends. It's that journey. And yeah, you may lose things along the way, but you gain things too. Yeah. And it's the experiences and it's the feelings. And I've always said, as an example, when somebody says, well, when you die, that's it. And I said, no one's ever, as long as they're in my heart, they're not dead.
Yeah.
They're not gone.
Yeah. Well, we don't know either. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah. We don't know what's on the other side.
We don't understand consciousness and all that stuff. I mean, I think I've got my own thoughts on that. But
yeah, I'm just talking about the physical aspects.
Yeah. But it is hard. It's really hard. And I think it takes a lot. It just takes constant awareness and constant work and openness. And I'll say, let me just add this one thing about dropping anchor. Emotional overwhelm is there in some respects to get your attention. So it's not just about like, let me just get rid of the symptoms, so for example, when people are grieving and they cry, they go, I don't want to cry. Well, crying is actually a normal, healthy, adaptive emotion to express. You actually want to do that. And even aggression in an adaptive way. Like I'm going to go hit the punching bag, or I'm going to go punch the pillow to release some of this. And I'm not going to hurt anybody in the process. I'm like, yes, go for it. Don't suppress emotions. That's not the goal, is to suppress. So
keep it inside, and one day the way it comes out will be much worse.
It's going to pop.
Much worse.
Yep. So it's not we're not trying to avoid emotions or avoid those warning signs that overwhelm can give us, which is, hey, hold on, you're getting overwhelmed. It's to pay attention. That's the goal, is pay attention and then decide what the correct course of action is.
Well, I'm going to throw you a softball that we need to say this, I think. And that is, I think we all, at some point in our lives, reach that point where we don't know where to go and what to do. Fortunately, for so many of us, we have loved ones, but make sure that don't ever feel like you have nowhere to turn.
Yeah.
If you feel like you have nowhere to turn, you're wrong. Please talk to someone, get help. there's even a toll-free numbers out there that you can
just
go
dial 988. And that's a way to speak with somebody. The suicide hotline is 800-273-8255. Like if you feel like you're at the end,
please don't feel like you're alone.
You don't have to be. And if you are alone, it's good to reach out. So yeah, reach out and call, you can't do this on your own.
We weren't meant to do this on our own.
No.
We are social creatures. We're not meant to live alone and to be a hermit in a cave. It's just, that's not how we were built and designed. Although sometimes I think we act like we can do it all by ourselves.
Well, that's our society too, is very individualistic. A lot of other societies are much more community oriented. And so we just want to be lone wolves and think we should just tough it out on our own. And I'll just tell you, toughen it out. There's some like utility in that, but there's a point where that becomes really stupid and your ego gets in the way and it's dumb. You don't have to do that. Just reach out.
Ego and pride are two of the most dangerous things that I think historically men face.
We're going to have to talk about that one at some point.
Oh, yes,
we'll get into ego and pride. We're going to get a lot of emails about that, but anyways, this was, I appreciate the listeners maybe hanging with this episode. It was kind of a different one for us. I was kind of heavy when we got on the call and before we started recording, and Karl sort of tapped in and was like, "Hey, I'm going to talk about that." I was like, I don't know. But I think it was good. We didn't really follow an agenda today, but hopefully it was useful. Hope people get something out of it.
The one thing I would want to say, and we waited until the very end to say it, is that you're not alone. And this is something we all deal with. We sometimes feel like, no one knows what we feel or what I'm feeling, and I have nowhere to go because no one will understand, and it's just me alone. You're not. For those that are in a place where they don't have anybody, they still have places to turn. It's not the fun part of life that we want to talk about, but it's part of life. And we just need to make sure, like Matt had given, there's tools and there's places for us to go to get us through those times until we get to God willing, for most of us, a better place. So any last thoughts, Matt?
Everybody take care of yourself out there. Go love your loved ones. If you've got them, if you don't, just go have a conversation with somebody, even at the grocery store. Just connect with somebody. Just look in somebody's eyes and feel that connection, that human connection that's innate and that we've got. There's ways to connect if you're willing to, and if you just show up. People need it. I mean, it's amazing when you just talk to somebody and just look at them in their eyes. They're not used to that. Even at the grocery store, it's like, oh, wow, there's actually somebody was just kind to me. Somebody acknowledged me. It goes a long, long way. And I think, do a little bit, a lot. Don't try to do a lot, a little. Just go connect. Just go have a meaningful, even just saying hello to somebody is deeply meaningful. And you never know, that might just like help somebody in ways that is profound that you'll never be aware of.
As always, we thank you for listening. Please keep the questions coming. podcast@liftaffect.com. And also, please give us a like, thumbs up, keep spreading the word of our podcast. There are so many people that this is how they find out about us, and we appreciate you supporting us by letting other people know about this so that we can touch and help people that, as Matt says, we may never ever know that we've helped them, but that's what this is all about, is giving people tools and ways to reach out and find that help when they need it. Thank you again for being a part of this today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the LiftAffect podcast. If you want to dive deeper into this episode and every episode, go to our website, liftaffect.com/podcast. If you're enjoying the show, we would love it if you'd follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate your support. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all with the ID Matthew McNeil. This show is brought to you by LiftAffect, a clinical mental health and consulting company that assists air carriers, corporate flight departments, pilot unions, and commercial pilots by providing comprehensive psychotherapy and mental skills coaching services to pilots with mental health and mental performance-related issues. Visit LiftAffect.com, that's LiftAffect.com, to book your free consultation. And finally, this podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of counseling, psychotherapy, medicine, or any other healthcare service, including the giving of medical advice. No therapeutic or provider-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and any materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining advice for any psychological or medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the LiftAffect podcast.